Going live. No turning back. Pulling up the notes. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is Weekly Scrap, number 182. My guest tonight is Chris Stewart. He worked for Phoenix Fire Department since 1991 and only recently retired. He did it all from the backstep to all the way up to many divisions as a chief officer. He serves on the technical panel for the UL FSRI study of coordinated fire attack utilizing acquired structures. He worked on NFPA 1700. He is still engaged and still active in the fire service, married to his high school sweetheart, as well as having two sons who both, I'm assuming, still attend Arizona. I don't know where they're at currently. Yeah, attend
they're in Arizona State.
Arizona State University. Chris Stewart, it's my pleasure to have you on as my guest this evening. Welcome to Scrap number 182.
Thanks, man. I'm thrilled to be here. This is going to be fun.
Going to be a lot of fun. Pulling up, making sure I got everything pulled up. There we go. All right. Is there anything I missed in the intro? Anything you'd like to add that I left out?
No, I think there was probably too much actually about it. I'm like you and I were talking beforehand. I feel really, really lucky to have gotten to do the stuff I've done and the place I've worked and the fire chief who I worked for in the first 15 years of my career, who set the table pretty significantly in a high bar of how to be a firefighter and how to be a boss. So I'm thrilled and super lucky, and I'm ready to talk about whatever we can tonight.
Awesome, man. Okay, everybody, audience, as you're tuning in, please get your questions primed and ready. Vigilantes, if you're around, if you want to be a part of the Vigilantes, go to firehousevigilance.com, sign up, $5 a month, the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee, and you get to be a part of the exclusive community, exclusive discounts, exclusive swag. Yeah, that's enough of that. Let's pay the bills. This episode is brought to you by Key Hose. Check them out on Facebook, The Hose Experts. Affordable drill tower, firefighter, owned and operated. The only thing you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire. Affordable drill tower, you can rappel, stretch hose, go through the stairs, go through the floor, do window bailouts, cut holes in the roof props, use the apartment balconies, pump into the FDC or flow water from the sprinkler system. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. And I'm very, very proud of this, which is FDIC International. It is where the fire service comes together. Be there April 24th through the 29th at the Indiana Convention Center to learn from the best. See the most innovative products and services from leading companies and recharge your passion for the industry. Register now at FDIC.com and use the promo code SCRAP. And last but certainly not least, Speed Swivel, speedswivel.com. Mike Cornelius, man, the inventor of the Speed Swivel, he has a brand new article coming out this month in Fire Engineering. It's entitled Resolving Incompatible, Vandalized, Damaged, or Stolen FDC Fire Department Connections. He's passionate about it, and he has developed a product for it. So check it out, speedswivel.com. Check out the article. And with that, we move into the official start of the scrap. My brother Chris, you wrote an article, The Epidemic of Good Dudes. I love the article. I read through the article, man. I want to give you a chance to just talk about the epidemic of good dudes.
Well, so I don't think, where I work or where I come from is any place special with regards to this. I think this is probably something that a lot of fire departments and a lot of firefighters are experiencing. And so had some a really, really motivated engine company crew here that I was talking to, and they had just put together some company shirts and shared one with me, and on the back of with the smiling coffee pot underneath it said "No Good Dudes," and I'm like, all right, fire some explanation on me here. What the heck does this mean? And really, it's so. How many of us have been sitting around the firehouse discussing whatever, solving the world's problems,
sure,
talking about the issues or challenges inside our fire departments, and the statement was been said, yeah, that they really aren't very good at their jobs, but they really are a good dude.
Right.
Well, I've had enough of good dudes who aren't good at their jobs. I've had enough of us kind of making excuses in a lot of ways for folks who haven't taken the job seriously, who are ill prepared, or just not into what it takes. And you know, all of us, our organizations, our individuals, or individuals in the departments making kind of excuses for it. Is, well, no, it's okay, they're a good dude. Well, good dudes ain't cutting it in a lot of ways.
Right on.
Right. And so organizational leaders, when we find ourselves working for organizational leaders who are functionally good dudes, we like being around them. We may want to have a beer with them, but I certainly don't look up to them, and I certainly don't aspire to be them. They aren't great at sharing vision. There's a lot of false platitudes and all this nonsense that they spew out about how awesome things are and how awesome everybody else is. And it just gets in the way of actually having real conversation about how actually are we doing? What do we need to train on? What do we need to improve? What are we doing good at? And what are we, skilled at on the fire ground? And what can we rely on? And how can we be better? So it's a challenging thing. I don't mean it to be derogative. I don't mean it to be, I don't want it to be fighting words, but I do think it's important that we call it out. And I'm quite honestly, personally, I'm sick of it. And I don't think I'm alone, right? I've gotten tons of really positive feedback about, my comments and that type of stuff. So I don't know, Corley, am I off base and thinking that, that just happens around me?
Oh no, I think you have a finger on the pulse of something that happens everywhere, where it's like, yeah, but he's such a great guy. He's such a good dude. He's insert whatever platitude you want to put on it. But make no mistake, I wrote down a note. I said, and it's not an either or. You can be good at this job and be a good person, right?
Yeah, hell yeah. In fact, those are the folks we want to work with, right?
Right.
We know when we have come to work at a firehouse, in a fire company, or in some other job we may have, like it's a training academy or something like that. When we have good bosses, we have good people that work around us that are centered in being competent, and they care about the job. They care about the product that they put out. They care about the community. They care about taking care of each other. And so being a good person and being good at our job should not be mutually exclusive. In fact, that's what we probably need to be hiring for, right? And if somebody isn't great at their job, hell, I'm down to help. I'll do what I can to help somebody improve and work and train and do whatever it is they need to expand their mind, their horizons. My old boss said, an education is people and places. So that's a big recommendation for me. So if they need to improve or up their game and quit being just a good dude, it's got to be on them, and we can't care more than they do.
Oh, I love that, because the just a good dude is really kind of the qualifier. That's their only redeeming quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know we've all experienced it. We know what it looks like. I think when we say it, everybody, there's likely faces pop into everybody's head from, their world and their experiences, and go, no, that's well, if I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's exactly what they are.
Right.
So
right.
And good dudes in leadership positions, it's pretty clear what leadership is and what leadership isn't, and what it means. And the two most, at least in my eyes, the two greatest, most important things in leadership are credibility and competence.
Yes.
So are you connected to the job? Or you know what it is? Have the experience behind it? Have you done it before and executed it at a high level? Have you been a professional? Have you been working towards that? I'm not just practicing to do it right once. I'm practicing to do it right every time, and that level of competence. And then, are you credible? Can you relate to the people that you need to lead? Do they look at you as someone who they want to follow? And absent of those two things, you tend to get this syndrome of good dudeness. And so, yeah, I think leadership positions and good dudes are they don't work very well together, in my opinion.
No, the credibility and competence. It's actually one of the questions I pulled that quote out of your article because I really wanted to dig into it. We have the first question coming at you from the audience. Are you ready for it?
You bet.
This comes from Joey Hayes. He says, how reactive do you see a majority of the American Fire Service to the changing environments that firefighters are experiencing? More specific, the increased BTUs that are released with modern day synthetics. Are we generally 2 to 3 years behind as a majority, or is it more like 8 to 10 years? And more importantly, there's a lot. Joey doesn't ask easy questions. And more importantly, how do we educate greater and faster?
So to the first part of it, are we behind, especially with what's going on, in the environment, in the fire environment? Maybe. I think there has been a ton of stuff that people like UL and even before that NIST have been producing for us from research-based information for us to start applying. What I actually think is creating a delay is that idea of belief, right? Is because of experience and because of things that we've been taught, it's difficult to change our mind. And one thing I learned as being the person who was kind of responsible for introducing a lot of this fire behavior stuff in the Phoenix Fire Department was, and I think one of your next guests, Frank Lieb, is he and I have had a lot of conversations about this. Is we can't start from a position, or we have to prevent starting from a position where the way we were doing it previously was wrong. It's not. We likely were doing it based on what we understood at the time. Now that we are becoming more knowledgeable, there's more information out there. We've got to be more willing and more tolerant and more open-minded to start accepting it and actually put it into play. Because if we're truly talking about being however you want to put it, for them or for Mrs. Smith or for our community, well, being a professional is actually taking that information and trying to utilize it and make us better at our jobs for them. So if we need to change fire environments faster using water a lot more quickly and manage the thermal exposure that we have on the inside of these fire environments, then we need to do it. And I get the idea and the feeling and the desire to be salty and to have the experience of eating, coming up in our fire world and our fire experience of eating a little shit to know exactly what it means to do the job, right? And so however, that once we get a little bit of knowledge, we need to use it to our greatest capacity. So are we behind? We're only behind, in my opinion, at least, we're only behind at our willingness to accept the information and then put it into process and make it happen. We have plenty of fantastic examples all around the country, and even from fire departments that are very resistive to change, of applying some of these principles, like early water, that has made huge outcomes. So I appreciate the question. I think it absolutely has changed. I think the fire environment changed. We've got to change with it. There's smart people out there that are talking and trying to help us learn about not only the science, but then about the application of our work and water and search and ventilation. And we need to pay attention to it and not be afraid to change. Right. I think, was it Aaron Field said in his FDIC speech, comfort is the enemy of growth.
Enemy. Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it is, in my opinion.
What a beautiful answer. No, it's a beautiful answer. The inability to absorb and adapt and change our actual tactics, right?
Yeah, and we can't be bigger than the knowledge or put our. I guess to explain it better is if we think about it and we're not willing to change or adapt in certain ways, that's a pretty selfish position. Right. We're making it about how we feel about the situation rather than the execution of our job and the people we're actually working for. So I think that there's something there. And I know we're humans, man. And the firefighters, I love them. And as my old boss would say, the only two things they hate is change and the way things are. Well, that's we need to adapt a little bit here.
Love it. And how important are the UL FSRI studies? Because They've been going on for a while. But now they're becoming regular. They're becoming almost a staple. They're becoming a expected thing. You know what I'm saying? How important is the consistency of that? And you being involved in it, of course. I want to dig into that at some point. But just the data that's coming out and the consistency of the data that's coming out, and it's data driven, not just anecdotal.
Yeah, and the part that I didn't understand in the beginning, but really, really appreciate now is when they assign technical panels, it's our job as technical panel members to apply the experience and the reality of the job to the experiments and drive to those types of things that we want to get out of the experiments. So I've sat and listened to the conversations and taken part in the conversations of, no, we need to try this because this is actually the way it happens on the fire ground. Right. And that has actually led to what, in my opinion, at least better information that gets presented at the end of these. So the other part of it is I think the folks at UL are very open-minded and trying to adapt the way they present information that makes it more palatable for the fire service. And they're trying to figure things out and phrase things and provide graphics and colors, right, and illustrations and stuff that firefighters dig, because firefighters, if you want to watch guys' eyes glaze over, throw those graphs up in front of them, or throw the equation for FED, or fractional effective dose of thermal and toxic exposure. Yeah, they instantly, their eyes roll back in their head and they lose consciousness, right? So they're figuring out ways, and we're trying to provide feedback of how can they deliver the information in the most understandable way that's actually connected to the way we do work. And I think they're getting better and better. We just had a little symposium in Phoenix, and Craig Weinshank and Nick Ledeen got up and spoke about the Size Up and Search study, and right, coupled that with the data from the firefighter rescue survey. And Craig rolled out some fantastic illustrations and graphics about what actually, and using colors of their thermal the thermal levels, and so that you could see how things are changing based on what's going, or the actions that are taking place in that fire environment, whether it's water, taking windows, closing doors, that type of stuff, that make it really understandable for firefighters. Right. And I plan on using it this week when I go down and talk to the Phoenix Recruit Academy, and I'm going to use those examples because they do such a good job. So I think the challenge that UL has is they can only do so much with the time and energy and the staff that they have, and every single time they produce something, there is infinite number of questions that get thrown on top, afterwards. Okay, right. Now what about this? What about this? What about this? So we participated in a summit last September in Philadelphia where they were like, okay, what do we need to study next? And before you knew it, you had a list of 30 things. Right. And so, the next thing you know, they're going to have 100 research engineers doing all kinds of stuff. And I think the fire department will greatly benefit from it, but it's a challenge for everybody.
I think there's no doubt that it's benefited from the study so far. And it's been a progression as the dominoes have fallen, as more and more people have gotten involved in it. Priority Traffic Podcast said, we limit ourselves by not updating our habits and behaviors from health and wellness to fireground tactics. Thought it was an applicable comment. Absolutely.
That's a smart comment. Yep.
Greg Van Ham said, nice to see you guys here for the show. I'm just catching everybody up. Love the show, guys. Yes, absolutely. Stoneface Fool said, he's a great fireman. That's the biggest compliment you can get. Super nice guy. Well, that's a slam coming next, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to dig in, and audience, please, if you have questions about UL studies, anything we're talking about, anything, just throw them up there. But I wanted to bring up next was from your article, and you touched on it already, but I did want to dig into it. Ideally, you said this in the article, ideally, leaders must possess two critical traits, credibility and competence. Credibility and competence, and how key is that?
Well, so those are feelings, right? That one human has towards another, typically, right? and it has to have some basis in behavior, right, and how
Okay.
somebody's acted, and then in their history, right. You're going to earn credibility through what you've done, how you've acted, how you've treated people, how serious you've taken things, how big of a student of the game, if you will. And sometimes that's good. Firefighters look at that as good, and sometimes they don't. But that credibility comes from the is trust. It's 100% trust. Do I trust their decision making based on their experience, based on where they came from, based on my interactions with them previously, right. And am I willing to follow them? It's about followership, right? And right. I know the people that I'm absolutely down to follow, and there is no question. And when somebody earns out from me, I am in, and I'm paying attention. And there isn't a quicker way to get me, at least, and this maybe isn't, I probably shouldn't brag about this, but when I don't find credibility in somebody, I don't pay attention much. I don't have a whole lot of, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time listening, because I got other things to do, right? I'm looking for the positivity, and I'm looking for somebody who I actually can follow. So as somebody who's either got informal leadership position or formal leadership positions, we've got to be cultivating that idea of credibility, and how decent, what do I look like in the mirror?
Right.
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 And how do I, what am I putting out there to other people that makes them, or not makes them, but gives them that desire to want to actually follow you?
Right.
So that I see as big part with credibility. The competence thing. So whatever your organizational position is, having the skill and background and education, and I don't necessarily mean formal education. Education can be the school of hard knocks and the school of labor, hard labor, and having scars from making mistakes. That's as big a deal about education as any other formal component of education. And so, do you have the fundamental background and knowledge to do in the job? Have you worked your way through the positions to get to wherever you land, that you're ready to execute the work, that you're actually ready to execute, giving people direction, organizing a plan, providing vision, and getting the hell out of the way?
Right.
One of the things I find in competence is the people that lack competence immediately default to micromanagement. Right.
No,
and they're in everybody's business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so so what we kind of, in my circles that we run is, if you think about it in the EMS world, right? When you're looking at the spiral of death, right at the end is seizure, coma, death. Well, in organizations, right before seizure, coma, death is drastic micromanagement, because when that starts and it cannot stop, and they cannot turn it off, and you can't actually allow people to do the things that they're expected to do, and turn out products without that constant over their shoulder, that erodes organizational trust in a huge way, and it doesn't, and it takes a long time to get it back.
Wow. No, that's powerful. No, that is very powerful. Blake Schneider has a question for you coming at you. In your opinion, what makes a good leader? Does rank matter?
No. But, well, so to be a good leader, rank does not matter. That informal leader, we all know that how powerful that informal leader can be in influencing systems, bosses, the work, just simply by body language, man. However, I will say, when you get rank, if you suck at leadership, it is going to be a miserable road. So being a good leader matters when you get rank, if you're going to have any level of success. So, but no, leadership is not, pigeonholed to just formal positions, company officers, chief officers, whatever. Some people that I call to this day were actually never officers, never supervisors in any way. And I go, all right, here's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking?
Right.
And help me figure out and help me how to deliver this message so that it's understood, that they get the intent, they get the why behind it, and we actually can move the needle a little bit. And, so in fire behavior or in right now, at least for me, one of the biggest topics is ventilation. So how do I start influencing people who are really, really interested and connected to their personalities connected to ventilation or vertical ventilation, and how do we become smarter about it? I'm not saying don't do it, but how do we become smarter about it? Yeah. So I talk to people that are doing the work and try and figure out what my message is.
Right. No, and be effective in delivering that message, because if all they hear is you can't do it no more, or that's unsafe, it's kind of like, it ties back to what you were talking earlier about, we were doing it wrong before. Right? That's not the message. It's, can we be more effective? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's it gets to be funny about how receptive they are, and little things can turn firefighters off from listening. So
Sure.
trying to be perceptive to all that and how you deliver it and how you have that conversation, and consistency of message and consistency in who you are and how you interact with people helps us kind of get through that.
Oh no, and how bad some people will just turn you off after, if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and then you got to try to earn that trust back, or whatever you lost in that moment. Stephen McCaffrey said micromanagement comes from a lack of trust. Trust is cultivated on the drill ground, both parties working together. And Ricky Bova said drastic micromanagement. There is your soundbite, Corley. Cody Robbins said just over 20 minutes in, and I've stopped counting quotes for t-shirts, stickers. Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of good stuff. I see, checking to see if there's another question coming here. Backstep firefighters are the true leaders in a department. The backstep can get more done than most leaders. That comes from Casey McIntosh. And especially if those informal, influential backstep firefighters, especially when they step up and promote, man, then they can really, really affect the trajectory of a lot of things. Larry Williams said, decentralized command will change your team's abilities. You will go from a good crew of followers to a great crew of leaders. Allowing them to think for themselves and take ownership allows them to grow substantially. Absolutely.
That guy's a student of extreme ownership.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Because that's one of the principles. I wanted to throw it at you. You've been doing this for a long time. That's not, I hope you take that as a compliment.
Yeah, look at my hair.
Right on. I appreciate. What has been the change throughout your career that has surprised you the most?
The change in how difficult it has been to actually get things, or to be able to take care of the community, or to be able to take care of our community. So what I mean by that is, so when I came on the Phoenix Fire Department, the Phoenix Fire Department was an emerging fire department. Our fire chief had been around for well over a decade. He was doing some really innovative, interesting stuff. He was engaged in the American Fire Service. He at the highest levels, and was 100% a leader. And in my first 15 years, he had an incredible knack for connecting us to the community, and then being able to maximize that in getting us things to be able to take care of the community. So growing our department, getting us apparatus, getting us innovative equipment and training opportunities, bringing people to us to actually talk about stuff that they're learning and that can make us better. And I will say that after 2006, when he left, the degree of difficulty that created for the leaders after him was pretty incredible. So he had a reputation of working in our city with a ton of autonomy. And he really didn't. I mean, he had a boss just like everybody else has a boss, but he was just
Right.
really good at explaining things. He was really good at taking what the community thought of us and using that to get us. I mean, we would do customer service surveys all the time about what the community thought of the Phoenix Fire Department, and we crushed every other city agency in friendly, competitive ways. And it was very, very difficult for the elected body and the policy level of a city to say no to what we needed to do to take better care of the community. I don't know what happened, because I feel as if now organizational leaders have to work so much harder and explain so much in so much different detail about what it is that we need. And still there's this incredible resistance to the things that a service delivery organization like fire departments need across the country to actually be able to execute. We're constantly fighting for firefighters to be able to do the work, to take care of the community. The political body and the policy body is arguing against us taking care of our communities. I don't quite understand that position. I know it's all about money. I know it's about it's power. It's all that other stuff. But the change I've seen at the high level, at the strategic level, has been that is how difficult it is to convince elected bodies that the fire department needs certain things and needs training to actually be able to take care of the community. Now, there is no doubt that what I learned in the academy and how we work on the fire ground now is different, right? And what the level of knowledge that at least I feel like I have about water flow, where it needs to go, fire behavior, the fluid dynamics of all that, how throwing victims in there, how we manage air, the air movement or not manage the air movement, and all that stuff. That has been a phenomenal change, in my opinion, at least. And so from the working end, that's the greatest change. It's brought on a whole host of challenges of how do you stay on top of it. We already talked about how do we train, how do we get buy-in. And so there's been a couple things that I've seen that I scratched my head and I do count my blessings, because I'm working in a really small fire district in the northwest corner of the Phoenix Regional Automatic Aid System, and I have a fire board that they are true professionals, and they are down with taking care of the community. Nice. And so we're bringing things to them in a thoughtful way, and they're going, yeah, makes sense, let's do it. And nice. So I appreciate that, because I haven't experienced that the last 15 years.
Right on. How big of a vacuum was it for like Bruno to retire, and was it just that whoever followed him was set up to fail? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, totally. So from an empathetic position, and it's interesting because,
and I hope that doesn't come across like I'm slamming anybody who followed him. That's not what I mean.
No,
Okay.
No, not at all. I don't think so. And my comments aren't meant to do that either, because whoever's going to follow Alan Brunacini, think about that. Put yourself in that shoes. Is you're gonna take the place of what many people have called America's fire chief.
Right.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel, and I know the people that are following him, right? I worked with them. I grew up with them in the organization. And so they were not, the person that was going to do that is in an incredibly difficult position, because you're not going to be Alan Brunacini. You can't be. And in many ways, people don't want you to be, right? Because with his highly effectiveness, it was really, I can't imagine being Bruno's boss and trying to tell him no.
Right.
And it became way easier for them to tell the next two fire chiefs no. And the newest one they have, it's easy to tell them no. And so I don't, looking back on it, if I was in their shoes, I would have approached a lot of things differently than they did. That doesn't mean I'm right, and it does not mean they were wrong at all. However, looking back now and being able to use hindsight, right? We're all way smarter 15 years down the road.
Absolutely.
There's things and there's they need to, in today's version of that organization. They need to connect to the community better, and they need to connect to their firefighters better. I wish them all the luck, and I'll help from a distance.
Right on, right on. No, it's a great question. I hope it came across, and you answered it very beautifully, and I hope it yeah, absolutely. Culture, it's a big buzzword in the fire service today. What do you mean by culture? Define culture, what it means to you.
So, like, the simplest definition of culture, and I'm kind of a definition guy, is
I love it.
The way things are done around here, right? So it's common thoughts or practices that a group exercises as part of their as a part of their community, right? And so if you're going to boil that down in the fire service specifically, it's the way things are done around here.
Nice.
So when we start to look at culture and what things impact culture the most significantly, it's values. And so whatever an organization holds as valuable to them, as important elements or ideas or fundamentals for that organization, that is going to dictate the behavior, because what drives behavior is values, right? What we think is important. So if we come into an organization, or you start evaluating an organization, or evaluating your own organization, right? You start looking at is, okay, what are our values? What do we think is important? And are they centric? Are they selfish values? Are they for the community? Are they for Mrs. Smith? What are they? And then when we have challenges in organizations, we get this disconnect of values. Is we have these formal stated written values, that you'll see in mission and vision statements, and every fire department has their version of them, and some are way better than others, and some are followed way better than others. And then you start to get, or you can start to get, these informal values. And sometimes those informal values start competing with the formal values. And the line level members are often more willing to grab hold of those informal values. And so, for example, what I'm talking about in my time in the Phoenix Fire Department, I was the operations safety guy for a little while, and we were not afraid to drive to test the limits of our Code 3 driving rules and skills, right? And so because why? We've got a highly motivated workforce that wants to get there, do things, and make stuff better, right? And the faster we get there, the faster we can get to work. Well, it was putting us in positions where we were hanging our rear ends out pretty significantly. We got into some wrecks, and we weren't making things better for the community. So at that point, we had these unspoken or informal values of speed. I'm going to protect my first due. I'm not going to get beat in by another company in my area of responsibility. I'm going to protect that. And that starts to be in conflict of the organizational values of, hey, we're going to get there in a timely manner, be as safe as we can, do everything we can to take care of Mrs. Smith. And they become a little bit divergent, and they kind of push against one another. So organizations have to work on, like, making those formal values real and legitimate, get buy-in, have the membership create those values that are in line with what you want to execute, and use those to kind of help the way you do things around here, help that culture. And don't let there be there's the way we teach it in the academy, and there's the way we do it in the real world.
Right.
Or there's a way we do it in the real world, and then there's a way we do it in promotional tests. All that stuff drives a wedge in organization. So if your culture is just, and you have true and legitimate values that connect with firefighters and the community and the bosses who need to actually be able to manage what's going on, you're in a way better position. And if you want to change culture, you got to change behavior, and you change behavior through values.
Values, man. Dude, that is so strong. Especially when you talk about the speed versus safety, because it's such a good argument, and it's because it boils down to values. But at the same time, you say the safety, versus speed. If you're going to take an intersection, right? If you put the citizen in the intersections at risk, what's the difference? Who, as far as to save someone who may or may not be at risk later, it's all about understanding the value. And that makes it, and it has to be shared values. Okay.
So I saw we had at some point in my career we had an apparatus accident involving a company, and I happened to be in and around it, and I happened to be there when the fire chief was there, and fire chief showed up on that stuff, and he talked to people. He first and foremost wanted to make sure everybody was okay, and the conversation between him and that company officer was, hey, I need you to get to the call. I want you to go as quickly as you can within the boundaries, but I need you to get to the call. If you can't get to the call, you can't help anybody. So we've got to. There is limits, and there is I want firefighters to be able to kick ass, but I need them to be able to kick ass every time. And in order to be able to kick ass every time, you got to survive the last one.
No, and it's that dichotomy, that balance, and making them understand what you're talking about.
100%.
Yeah. And Alan Glogowski said, "Can't help Mrs. Smith if you're wrapped around a tree."
Fact.
Andrew Feskins asked this question, and you can take the question wherever you want. How has the customer service model that Bruno instituted and created changed in your area since he retired? Because he's known for that book. I mean, that book with the cartoon drawings, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like taking care of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But your opinion.
Well, so we'll talk a little real here. To do customer service at a high level consistently over long periods of time is hard. And if you don't have organizational leaders that make it a priority, and if you don't have a true pathway to actually execute it, the boss said it very eloquently in multiple different ways, is firefighters will deliver service in the exact same way they receive support. So if they start to not feel as if they're supported inside their organization, and they're not being taken care of by the bosses, and they're not cared for, maybe their training isn't what it needs. We don't have the resources. There's disengagement or disingenuous communication. That's going to get in the way of customer service. There's no two ways about it. It's a mirrored image, right? Firefighters will behave exactly the way that they are treated. So it's hard.
Right.
And so, like every organization, I think my former organization has had its ups and downs with it. And it's been based on the leadership of it. It's been based on the credibility and competence of it, the connection to the work, because I know customer service gets this moniker of it's touchy feely and it's all this other nice stuff, but customer service is kicking ass on the fire ground. Right. There is no greater form of it, quite honestly, in my opinion, than showing up and being highly effective at putting the fire out, getting it all clear, and saving people's stuff. So it is changed. It's fluctuated, and it's difficult. The environment changes, and we need to adjust. So the customer service things that are happening in my former organization or many other organizations are getting challenged by leadership. They're getting challenged by the community expectations. I will say that I think some of the criticism of law enforcement is bleeding over into the fire world and creating challenges. So we've got to adapt to it, right, and figure it out. And but I'll tell you what, leadership will fix it. Leadership will improve it. You've got to execute it. The other thing my old boss would say is, if you want to improve customer service, fix the boss. So if you've got a company officer, you've got anywhere in the chain, if you've got bosses out of whack, treating firefighters poorly, they're likely going to be doing the same to Mrs. Smith. So focus on the boss, and maybe we should have less good dudes.
Less good dudes. Bring it back full circle, right back to where we started. The good dudes, man. No, it's a great man. It applies to so much. I'm trying to think what I want to ask. Attitude and culture reflects leadership. Can't expect buy-in of values until you lay out the clear expectations up front. This comes from the stone-faced fools. One of the expectations should be that you all exceed the expectations. That's a different approach. I like that. I like that approach. Everybody exceeds the expectation.
I do too. So coincidentally, today, I've been in my new job for 3 months, and the fire chief that I'm working with now is somebody I worked with in Phoenix for my entire career.
Okay.
And so we're getting to do this thing together, and it's a lot of fun. But today, I'm in a small enough organization where we could have an all hands meeting with the entire department. And today was about setting organizational expectations, starting to define the critical stuff that we've been just talking about, or I've been rambling about ad nauseum, right? And saying, okay, we need to develop this for us, and this is what we're going to hold ourselves to. And the accountability is an important thing, but the most important accountability is to each other and to the community, and establishing that environment is important. So and one of those values or one of those expectations has to be high expectations. I expect you to be good at your job.
Right.
And that can mean a lot of different things. And but yeah, I totally appreciate that position. And there is every single time in my career, people I've worked around, if I've set a high bar, or if somebody I was working for set a high bar, every single person worked their ass off to get to touch that high bar. We don't like letting each other down. We don't like letting ourselves down. And I don't have an instance where we didn't meet it in a genuine way.
Right. Yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. Training, it's near and dear to you. What are we getting right? What are we missing the mark on when it comes to training?
So what I appreciate right now is the grassroots level training that is going on all across the country. And that has stemmed because of a need, right? If there wasn't a need, the simple economics apply here. If there's not a need there,
Right.
There's not an opportunity for people to deliver it. So organizations, whether by choice, whether by financial straits, whether by, whatever, issue we overlay it, have had a difficult time meeting the training needs of their firefighters and their organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I see is a lot of really cool education going on that is being delivered by from many different angles. And a firefighter today can go to things that I never could go to as a line firefighter. Shoot, you can work your way from California to Florida, stopping in every state for a symposium or a hot class or whatever, and do it in 6 months and literally hit every state. That's cool, right? Now we need to be careful sometimes with the information and what we're doing and what we're presenting, and again, not making it about the instructors, and we get a little evangelical at times in the American Fire Service. So being smart about that. But if we're focused on doing the work smartly, we're focused on taking care of our community, our customers, and Mrs. Smith, and we're focused on this idea that we need to be able to show up every day and do that every day, and there is no acceptable loss. The fire service, or on the fire ground, I never once went to a fire as a firefighter, an officer, as an IC, where I was like, I'm comfortable with losing somebody. It doesn't happen, right? I'm not comfortable with losing firefighters, period, end of story. Been there, done it. I don't want to be around it again, and it gives me a gut ache when it happens, and it happens more than I would like, right?
Right.
So we need to work in a manner which and we need to take down a little bit of the binary idea of effectiveness and safety. Like they're somehow mutually exclusive. They're not. Like we can be highly effective and we can live to tell about it in a real way and be repeatable and get better and train on it and that. So I don't like I personally get uncomfortable when we talk about safety and effectiveness in two different ways, and I think they're connected together. And I think we're actually driving to the same point if we're working on them in a direct way.
So they're not diametrically opposed. It's like it's not
exactly.
It's not an either or.
100%.
Right. No. Yeah. Safe and effective, man. I love it, man. Hey, I've enjoyed the conversation, my brother. Now, you mentioned earlier, you said this guy's a fan of extreme ownership. So I get a sense that you're a reader. I'm not 100% on that, but I feel like you're a reader. I'd love to ask people, book or books that you think firefighters should be reading.
So, I've been here a short time in my current department, and the books that I bought for all my company officers, they have extreme ownership. They have It Starts With Why. They have Just Culture, and yeah. Oh, and then Ego Authority Failure.
Ego Authority Failure.
That's from the Black Swan Group. Chris Voss, he's the FBI negotiator.
Yeah, the negotiator. Yeah.
Well, he has a guy that works for him, and I think, if I remember, his last name is Gaunt. Derek Gaunt, I think, is the author's name. And Ego Authority Failure, fantastic read. So he takes the principles of that negotiation stuff and applies
never split
it
the
leadership.
difference type stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Never split the difference. Exactly. Takes that stuff and applies it to leadership. And he's a former police officer as well.
And who wrote that one? I want to write it down. I'm sorry, I'm taking notes.
I think it's Derek Gaunt, if I remember. Okay. Gaunt, or maybe it's Galt, Gault, something.
That'll get me there.
Amazon
with
will find it.
Ego Authority Failure. Yeah, that'll get me close enough. And anybody listening.
Yep, 100%. I've shared that with as many people that I've tried to, have come to me for to talk about things, or looking for guidance, or at least my perspective. And I've shared that book. I don't know, I've handed a dozen copies of that out. I think it's a big deal, and I actually really dig it when people come back and go, "Hey, I use that." Right? That actually works.
I love it because I love Voss. I love Never Split the Difference, and he said that he's involved in that, and so I'm really excited to see his principles applied to leadership. So I'm very intrigued. I'm going to be ordering it, and I'm going to bump it up to my reading list, because my reading list is like ridiculously long. I'll not lie.
Yeah, mine too.
So for all that being said, we have a thing we do on the scrap. It is called 5 Questions for Firefighters. And eventually, after 120 episodes, we changed it from the 5 Questions for Firefighters to the next 5 Questions for Firefighters. The points are arbitrary. They're assigned by me. The answers are completely 100% your opinion. So my question to you, Mr. Chris Stewart, is: are you ready for the next 5 Questions for Firefighters?
100% ready.
All right, here we go. 100%. I love it. All right. Number 1, what single characteristic makes the difference between a run-of-the-mill firefighter and the top-tier, go-to, badass firefighter?
I'm going to go with my gut and answer quickly and say desire. So, and what I mean by that is the attraction to the job, the desire to actually be a firefighter, and then the desire to actually be a good firefighter, and to figure out what that looks like. It might be slightly different in many different organizations and environments, right? But figuring it out for themselves, and then looking and emulating the people that are really influential, formal or informal leaders, and start to take things from them, but patterning themselves so that they are their own individual, right? And so that desire to want to be a firefighter, to want to be good, and the desire to figure out what it takes to be good, because it's an infinite process, man. None of us are experts. None of us have it figured out. I am constantly and regularly learning things and going, man, I had no clue about that. I like learning new things, and I love when younger members in my organization teach me things. And so young in age or young in seniority, whatever, I really, really appreciate that. So the desire to be good, the desire to be, to achieve something that, there's no real end point, right? But we're constantly chasing after it and working to make it better. So I'm going with desire. Last answer. I don't need any help from the audience.
Well, the audience said already max points. That came from James Michelisco. Josh Brooks said 100 with the emoji. Robert Lieber said the ability to know what is wrong, take corrective action, and move on from. And Larry Williams said yes, the desire to be better for ourselves, for our brothers, and for our customers. So good. So I agree with the audience. Max points.
Yes.
On question number 1. All right, moving on. Question 2. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice as a rookie, what would it be?
Slow down. Slow down in a bunch of different ways. Actually slow down on the fire ground, physically slow down a little bit on the fire ground, because, we get in that sense of urgency and move quickly and demonstrate some aggressiveness, right? But actually the big trick of the game is the more you slow down, the more you can get your environment to slow down, and probably the more decisively and effectively you can actually act. Taking 10 more seconds to figure out the problem and then employing the right answer at that point, or the right action at that point, becomes way more effective. I think we get more done on the fire ground. I think we actually take care of our community better that way. And then slow down in appreciate the organizational positions that you have or that you're in. I miss being a firefighter. I miss being a company officer. In my last week in Phoenix, I went back and I spent 24 hours with an engine company that I worked with really early in my career. And I was like, hey, can I just come hang out with you guys? And they're like, yeah. They were great. Right. So I go down there and they're like, well, what do you want to do? You want to sit in the right front seat? You want to do that? And I go, no, I want to sit in the back seat. I want to go on calls. I'll contribute to whatever degree I can contribute. Right. I'm not here to screw up your game. But I want to go back and feel like being a firefighter, or like at least remember that feeling of being a firefighter in the back seat, and actually appreciate a little bit of the carefreeness that I didn't necessarily give it credit for at the time, and just have a good time. So slow down, appreciate like where you're at right now. And it's okay to be ambitious or to have a desire to take on formal leadership roles. I dig that 100%. But appreciate what you have, because it will actually make you better off later. It will make you a better leader. It will make you more appreciative of the work that's being done, and you'll not losing the respect for that work will ultimately make you a better boss. So slow down.
I love it. And this is, I'm working on this. People have heard it many times if they see me speak or anything like that, where I talk about the problem with the American Fire Services is baked in the cake, that the best things to do are at the lowest levels. You know what I'm saying? So the people that love it tend to not promote. Generally speaking, you extrapolate that over time, and it has a profound effect on the culture of the American Fire Service. And that ties right into that, man. It ties in. Todd Torbett said max points. Alan Glogowski said 100. So according to them and according to me, 2 for 2, max points. We're moving on to number 3. Here we go. What is your favorite training drill?
Anything involves squirting water. Like that's why we're here. That's why the fire departments came around. That's why, we invented things like truck companies and heavy rescues and all that to support what engine companies do. And putting fires out is the most important thing that we do. It says it on our name. And so anything where we go and we're working on how to better deliver water in the right way, in the most effective way that it impacts, victims, and that I am down with. So stuff that leads up to it, stuff that, how we load our hose, how we deploy our hose, how we set our hose up to move into a structure, what it takes for the nozzleman and the heelman to work together and be successful and flow water. I anything that involves flowing water, because that tends to make us better. We don't get to do it enough, and man, fires go out when you use water. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm down.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Ah, looking at, yes, a lot of people said Andy, 100%. Max points, always dropping truth bombs. Awesome, brother. Ready for number 4. What mistake have you learned the most from in your fire service career?
I will say that leading too fast. What I mean by that is I have a clear idea, I have a clear vision, I see something that right, wrong, or indifferent, right, that I think we need to go, and not spending the time working with all of the people that are involved, especially the people that have to do the work, and leading too fast, right? And getting out the front and getting ahead of the people that will actually execute it. And so, whether that's in fire behavior, whether that's in, anything new or something that seems to be new, is the times that I've pushed too hard and too fast. That has created turbulence, that's created pushback, people digging heels in, a lot of WTF moments. And so I would say that is trying to push things that, regardless of how clearly I see it, it's very clear in my head. I don't know why it's not clear in everybody else's head, right?
Right.
I could probably say the same thing in my marriage, right? Honey, I see it clearly. I can't understand why you don't. Is probably it. So, and I don't, but there's a couple mistakes, like putting pressure on my peers. Don't feel bad about it. Making my peers feel like, whoa, bro, slow down a little bit. Why are we constantly pushing? That I don't worry about. But I do worry about the firefighters and pushing too hard on them.
Is it I like the answer, because I feel that in my own in my soul. Is it just outrunning the trust? Is that kind of it creating friction?
Yeah, or understanding, or not spending enough time explaining things,
right?
Not spending enough time on the why, right? If we want to talk about extreme ownership stuff, not spending enough time on, this is why we need to make these changes. This is the why we need to grow or develop into doing these things, right? And rather than and saying, no, this is what we need to do. Well, right. I absolutely could have many times done a way better job explaining the why and connecting that with them and bringing them along, rather than pushing them.
No, I love the ownership of it. I love the ownership of saying, yeah, that's on me. 100% max points, 4 for 4. Final question, the question, with your talk of water, I'm anxious to hear what the answer is here. So, but it's heavy fire and searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or the first in on VES?
Oh, the nozzle, 100%.
I wondered. You said water. You said squirting water.
Yeah, I'm a tried and true engine company person. I didn't spend much time on ladder companies or heavy rescues. In fact, I don't think I ever worked a shift on a heavy rescue in Phoenix. They came around after I was, I'd been around for a little while. And so I know 100%. It's about getting the line off the truck, getting the water to the most advantageous position, and then pushing to the interior, because that's where the rubber is going to meet the road. There's no doubt. We need people searching. We need people looking for the victims, removing them in the right timing, in the right way, and recognizing the environment around them. But I would just as soon be the person in there changing that environment, knocking things down, controlling that, and then hydraulically ventilating as quickly as I could. And that's where I'm going to be.
Dude, I can't knock it. All I ever want to know is the reason behind the answer. And 100%, I love it, man. Especially when you spin that nozzle and say hydraulic ventilate and clear it out. 5 for 5, max points, pitched a no hitter for sure. Said Larry Williams. That's a money, dude. That's from Badley Valancourt. Yeah, it's not just me. And that officially, with that answer, makes it 182 scraps in the books. Yeah, absolutely. Brother, if people want to get a hold of you, reach out to you, how can they reach you, get in touch with you, ask you questions?
So on Instagram, I'm at Red RED Stew STEW. When I had hair, it was a different color and it used to be red. So yeah, Red CP Stew, at Red CP Stew on Instagram. That's probably the best place to catch me. I am on LinkedIn. I'm not great at it. I don't pay attention too much. I am on Facebook. I don't have a whole lot of fire department stuff on Facebook because I'm a lurker more than I am a talker. So, yeah. Yeah, hit me up on any of those. I'm happy to talk. I'm always down.
I appreciated you talking tonight. It was a very good conversation. I feel like it brought value to the fire service. Man, 100%.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate my guys for putting my name out there. It was not necessary, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. I appreciate it.
You were suggested to me by a lot of people, and including, you mentioned him earlier, Frank Lieb, who's coming up next week. Frank Lieb mentioned you, which that's a huge endorsement. So when he said that, I was like, that absolutely piqued my interest. So I'm very glad I got to meet you in this format with all the audience of the Scrap to enjoy also. Yeah, like I said, the 2023 has been killer so far this year. Holy smokes, I'm the luckiest dude in the fire service. The conversation we just had, the conversations I've been having. Next week is Frank Lieb. Amanda Miller asked me, when is the Mega Scrap coming up? I will tell you, the Mega Scrap is in March. It's March 27th. It is on building construction. It has Rob Fisher. It has James Johnson. It has William Knight. It is going to be Mega Scrap. Are we on Delta? Is that where we're at? I don't, if it's Echo, I don't want to be wrong. But anyway, Mega Scrap building construction is coming up March 27th. Yes. So answer that question. Everybody, Vigilantes, firehousevigilance.com, become a member of the Vigilantes. I always have to say that. If you want stickers, go rate the book, go rate the podcast, send me a screenshot. I will send you a bribe. The bribe is stickers. Firefighters love stickers. Other than that, man, it continues. I can't say thank you enough, Chris Stewart, for giving me your evening and sharing your knowledge, your passion, and your wisdom. So thank you, sir.
My pleasure, man. This has been great.
Audience, you know I love you. You make the Scrap what it is. Stoneface Fool said, thanks, Chris. Good show. Amanda Miller said, March 27th, building construction. Roger. That's the Marine coming out. She's like, boom, boom, boom. Got it. Great show. Thank you, Chris, from Alan Glugoski. Yes, they are good bribes. They are good bribes, Jesse Kate. All right, everybody. Thank you for spending your Monday evening with us. I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.